As we head into increasingly choppy economic waters, it is perhaps no surprise that most of us are looking to existing customers as our single biggest opportunity to drive growth through these turbulent times. The logic is actually, I think, pretty not only common, but it's actually pretty solid, which is to say these are customers that have already bought from us in the past, where we have an established relationship, where they've looked us in the eye and effectively said, we want what you sell. So it takes less time, it takes less money, it takes less effort, the argument goes, to drive growth with existing customers rather than going out and acquiring new logos altogether. Now, here's where I think the story actually gets interesting. I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's not true. However, I think there's a broad underappreciation of just how complex and how complicated it actually is to drive growth with existing customers relative to the acquisition of new logos. Because in the world of account growth, of account management, really, we're not talking about one thing, we're talking about two things. The physics gets really, really complicated. And just to show you what I mean, let's think about it first of all from the perspective of the supplier. So the sales rep, the account manager, the success rep who's selling into that account. From their perspective, with those existing customers, they don't just have one job or one task, they've got two. So first of all, we're asking them to grow that account, take that $20 million account and drive it to $25 million. But at the same time, we're simultaneously asking to make sure that whatever you do, don't lose the $20 million we have already. You're driving retention and growth at the same time. So we want you to grow it, but be sure you don't lose it. What's the one thing far worse than failing to grow an account to $25 million? It's failing to keep it all together. So now we're asking our sales reps or account managers to grow but not lose. That's complicated enough. Now, at the same time, let's think about it from our customer's perspective. There, on that side, it's equally, if not arguably, even more complicated. Because from a customer's perspective, there's actually two decisions that they need to make at the same time. One is to simply stick around. I love what we've done in the past. Let's just keep on keeping on. Let's do it more. Let's just do it longer. Let's do it for a longer amount of time. So let's keep that same level of service, the same level of products, the same level of deployment, but let's do it for another 6 months, another 3 years, whatever it might be. Notice, from the customer's perspective, that's a decision for what? It's a decision for status quo. It's relatively straightforward. This is working. Let's not break it. Let's not change it. Let's just keep going. But the moment that we ask them to grow with us over time, that's no longer a decision for status quo. That's a decision for change. And that actually gets a lot more complicated. In fact, there's 3 different ways this can get complicated. We can either ask that same group of people who bought from us in the past to buy additional services, additional products, additional capabilities. We're asking the same people to do more. So that's one way we're asking for change. Or we're asking a different group of people inside the customer organization to do the same thing that that first group is doing. So maybe we want to extend our footprint to a new geography or to a new business unit. So that's asking different people to do the same thing, which is also a story of change. Or where it gets most complicated, we're asking different people inside the customer organization to do something different or additional altogether. One way or another, though, all 3 of those dimensions of change are asking customers to do something different. So when you put it all together, think about where we just landed. This is driving growth with existing customers. We're asking our sales reps to grow but not lose, while asking our customers to change but not change. How the heck do you do that? That's actually the old thing about scratching your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. Well, in all of the research that I've been involved with, both at CEB and at Gartner, and then since at that time, everything in that research indicates a really interesting conclusion. In fact, 2 conclusions. The first is the general consensus seems to be that if we want to drive growth with existing customers, the first thing that we need to do is to make sure those existing customers are really, really happy, that they're really, really satisfied, that they are delighted with everything that we've done with them in the past, that they are raving fans of who we are and what we do and all the value that they've gotten from us in the past. And the idea is that if they're that happy, not only will they stick around, but they'll do even more with us going forward. But the funny thing is, in all that data, is that actually isn't borne out in reality. It's not borne out in the statistics. In fact, what we find is high levels of customer satisfaction, high levels of delight are indeed a hugely valuable and a hugely powerful driver of retention, which actually makes a lot of sense, right? If I'm really, really happy with what you've done with me in the past or what we've done together in the past, I want to stick around and keep on doing it. Let's keep on keeping on. It ain't broke. Let's not fix it. Let's just keep going. But just because I'm happy with what we've done in the past, just because I'm happy with what you've done for us in the past, doesn't necessarily mean that I believe that we as an organization should change what we're doing going forward into the future. So happiness with past performance isn't a predictor of the need to change going in the future. If anything, it just reinforces status quo rather than undermines it. But that's ultimately what we need to do if we want to drive growth with our customers, is we actually have to get them to embrace not just status quo, but to embrace change. And that's where satisfaction actually comes up short. So what's the answer? Well, if we're going to drive growth with existing customers, just like if we're going to drive the acquisition of a new logo, we've got to get that customer to embrace some dimension of change. We've got to get them to believe that the pain of same is in fact greater than the pain of change. We have to challenge their thinking and show them a new way to operate that can improve their business in ways that they haven't fully anticipated, and then build the business case not for our solution, but build the business case for that change. Does that start to sound a lot more like the acquisition of a new customer altogether? It absolutely does. And I think that's the thing that we underestimate when we think about driving growth with existing customers where we already have that relationship, is we fail sometimes, I think, to truly appreciate the physics of driving growth with those existing customers and how much that actually looks like asking a new customer to join us on our journey altogether. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that we shouldn't look to to existing customers to drive growth, but we need to appreciate just what we're up against and how to make that happen and what works and what doesn't. Good luck out there, everybody.